I hope you're ready for part 2 of my yarn painting of a nature scene. I'm Akeen Kidder, and welcome back to Yarn Painting with the Yarn Art Guy. Since we chose to do this yarn painting on a vertical canvas, in creating this piece, I realized it should be called A Beautifully Long Day. In part 1, we worked on the sketch and we started yarn painting the sky. In this video, we're going to make our way down from the mountains into the forest and end up on a beautifully bright flower bed. Let's get right into it. Let's make our way down from the mountain range. I chose blue for these mountains because I find that it's a very calming color and can really reflect the feeling you get when you look out at a mountain range during a sunrise. Subtle blues are one of the most beautiful things that this planet has to offer. From blue skies on a clear day to turquoise lakes and rivers that remind me of camping with my family. As I get to the section where the mountains meet the forest, I'm using this darker blue as a transitional color before going into green, so you'll see me put some small tree lines that are meant to look almost like a shadow in the distance. If you look at the trees here, you'll notice that there's not much details. Though this transitional space is important for the observer, I try to make sure you don't spend too much time looking at this section. I'll use slightly different greens to give a shadowing effect, but it's almost as if I'm trying to hide these trees. You'll notice the river flowing through the sections. They were placed randomly. I just wanted to flow with the yarn so that it could really mimic how random water sections pop up in nature. Now, as we get closer to the observer, we have to pay a lot of attention to shading and topography. This is a section where you'll notice me using bright, contrasting colors to really give the effect of the sun shining down. It's a delicate section with a lot of intricate pieces because with yarn painting, one little piece of fabric can completely change how the artwork is viewed. This is also where different yarn painting techniques really comes into play. Deciding between using small pieces versus one long piece and twisting it on itself will really give different effects. When you use straight lines, it seems further away, but when you start to bend and twist a strand of yarn, it really gives the effect of topography on the grass, those little bumps and twists that we all know from walking along a hill. It's also a technique that helps save time when creating yarn paintings because the process of putting one strand of yarn down at a time is obviously very labor intensive. Now I want to show you a different type of yarn that I use especially when trying to do things like bushes or when working on portraits is often the type of yarn I use for hair. This is alpaca yarn. I make sure it's not twisted too tightly and has a bit of a fuzz. It's great for different fun effects, especially when contrasting against acrylic yarn. The issue you might come across with this kind of yarn is that it's not as uniform and might cause you to touch your glue. It's also not the easiest fabric to place because it doesn't really hold together well, so it's something that does require a hot glue gun. As I continue to place new strands of yarn, I really want to take into consideration the shading and where the sun is coming from. It's actually very interesting for a mountain range like this because due to the hills, the shadow isn't always where you think it might be. To understand this, I had to look at a couple of pictures of different landscapes and make sure to give some thought before placing the yarn. People often ask me if by using a hot glue gun do I get burned a lot, and the answer is yes. When I first started yarn painting, it would be one of the common occurrences. But as I practiced, I learned to avoid directly touching the glue. But as you can see, sometimes you'll still find yourself in a sticky situation. But ideally, when placing a strand of yarn, you make sure that the piece of yarn is directly between your finger and the glue that you laid down on the canvas. Or as I do in my yarn painting workshops, I give people the option to use toothpicks to place the yarn and save your fingers from any pain. After finishing the last large tree, we get to the fun part of this piece, the grassy section. This is the part that I knew would take the longest because my idea here was to cut hundreds of tiny pieces of yarn and glue them onto the canvas. I wanted this section to have an almost abstract art feel, with fun, vibrant colors that wouldn't really be common on grass but can look like flowers from a distance or really be a section that's up to the interpretation of the beholder. So to do this, I chopped up a bunch of little pieces and got to work sticking each one either one at a time or up to three at a time. This is a type of intricate work where I would really suggest having a toothpick or something to avoid sticky fingers. But I don't take my own advice, and luckily I had an awkwardly long index nail that helped me stick these pieces onto the canvas without actually sticking my finger to it. But when using as much glue as I do, it's something that's unavoidable. It'll happen here and there, so I don't get too frustrated and just keep creating. Because this section is so colorful, it almost acts as a distraction where shading isn't as important as the other sections, but I did show special attention to the shading below the rocks, just so that it was clear to the viewer that these rocks were almost hidden among the grass, not just plopped on the field afterwards. With videos like this, I really love going between normal speed and time lapse because you really get to see how this piece was completed, but also realize the time it takes to finish something like this. An interesting fact about yarn painting is that even though there's a lot of strands stuck onto this canvas, yarn painting doesn't actually use that much yarn, so a little bit can go a long way. As we make our way down, we're at the final section of this piece where the flower bed lays, and we will start with the stems, where the important thing is the shape and transition from bright green stem to the darker greens as we get closer to the ground. This is to give the effect of it popping off the canvas. Doing small flowers like this is new to me. I didn't know exactly how to do it properly, but I figured the spiral shape would be ideal for roses. I then had the idea to do purple flowers differently with a more classic flower drawing shape. Though you're getting to see the time-lapse version of this part, I would say that these purple flowers is what took the longest for me. Each petal is a tiny folded piece of yarn. Next, I placed down these blue flowers. Another different technique. Again, I don't really know how I thought to do it like this. I just trusted my artistic knowledge. So let us get reloaded on some hot glue. A piece this size would take anywhere from 20 to 40 glue sticks, and the glue gun I have is really just a regular dollar store one. I've tried fancier ones, but it seems like this cheap one was really always the most reliable. I want you to understand, I don't plan exactly which colors go where. I trust that the viewer will understand the effect I'm trying to do with the colors, and they'll speak for themselves. The last set of flowers here will be pink. This was just a color I chose because I knew it would be something that would pop off the canvas. I'm going back to the row style of yarn flowers, just doing the spiral shape. I really find these are the most classic looking flowers. I tried to make sure to fill in the blank spaces with some greens, and then we reached the end of this piece, but I actually had to go back real quick and switch out some of the white flowers for blue ones because it was looking a little strange. Now it's time for the big reveal of a beautifully long day. I'm really happy with how this piece came out, the brightness that the sunrise has across the mountains, the depth of the lake area, and the vibrant flowers really work well together to give a full encapsulation of the beauty of nature. If you're interested in this piece, any of my other yarn paintings, or even my prints, make sure to check out yarnartguy.com. If you want something custom made, you can message me on Instagram at yarnartguy. So make sure to leave a comment and let me know what you want to see next. Until next time.